Shotgun to shotgun.
To speak. I'm getting to the point now where I tend to be the oldest person at a lot of things that I speak at, which is not a complaint. That's a good thing. This is an honor to be here. I've been saying that for years, and every time I'm in the presence of warriors, it's an honor because you have to identify who you receive your approval from. And my approval comes from the warriors. That's the center of who my approval comes from. That's who I write for. That's who we deal with, the warriors. They are the most important ones as far as I'm concerned on this planet right now. I know the babies are important, but the warriors take care of the babies. So it's an honor to be here, to be in your presence, to be closing this out in terms of words. This is a momentous occasion. And I'm hoping that we're going to see this every year. Of course, need to give special thanks, appreciation to Brother Alias, Brother Bomani, everybody else who's involved. And everybody was involved in a way because I'm very sure all of the faces I'm looking at delivered the word to other people to be here for the event. And this is a community event. This is how we act like a community. So I'm definitely honored to be here. And I'm trying to find words that would express the appreciation that we should have for those who put this together. This was an enormous event. This is an enormous activity. It involved hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people of all ages, and that's a lot of work. Of course, Nana, Hannibal Afrique, he made the point, the reward for work is more work. And when I first heard that from him, I'm like, what is he? I don't want more work. Let me finish what I'm doing. But I clearly understand what he was talking about now. And it has to do with the integrity of the person or people who are doing the work. If you do it, I think back in the day when my family was in the church, my mom going to church with my mom and dad and brother, and my mother would complain on occasion, rightfully so, that she was always having to wash out all of the glasses and pour all the grape juice and cut up the bread and all the rest of this stuff that went along with that. And that was because they knew that she was going to do it right. So the reward for work rightfully is more work. And everybody's face I see here that I know, they're workers. So this is, I guess, kind of like a vacation for us, where we can sit down and talk to each other and commune and be together. It's a wonderful thing. So I want to spend this at least an hour. I would love for us to have a little bit of Q&A, but I want to spend this hour going over some words from Nana Marcus Mosiah Garvey himself. Because I don't think anybody could say it better. We have to take, and his birthday is tomorrow, which we know. And I always tell folks on these people's birthdays, on their birthdays, if that's what we want to say, of these people who we hold in such high esteem, we should be reading their stuff. Okay, that person's birthday on that day, on that special day. So on Nana Malcolm's day, then we should be reading something that Malcolm said. And we should be doing more than just watching the videos. We should be reading something. We got to get back to these books, because all of these videos, as informative as some of them are, they don't make you think the same way as when you're reading words on a page. It's different. It's sort of like you reading the book and then going to the movie. We need to do more reading, even if it's the same thing and over again, even if it's only a little bit. And we need to get out of this ego thing where we feel our reading may not be up to par. I am a very slow reader. I've been a very slow reader. And for many years, I was very ashamed of that fact. I see people who are reading 3 or 4 books, and I'm still stuck in the middle of the book that I'm trying to read through. Only later did I come to realize that while they had read those 3 books, they couldn't tell you a whole bunch about the 3 or 4 books that they had read. But I could tell you almost paragraph per paragraph what I'd read, and I thought about it and given it a lot of thought. There was an elder continental African who I was speaking to one time, and he said something which threw me for a minute. He said, read a lot, read a little, think a lot. These are real simple. Read a little, think a lot. And that made perfect sense to me. That made perfect sense to me. So we need to be reading Garvey tomorrow. You need to be reading Nana Garvey tomorrow. Something by him. Even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes, we need to read him. Because he gives, as I say right here, he gives a charge to the warriors. In everything that he does, he gives a charge to the warriors. If we believe that we're supposed to study our parents, imitate our parents, then do better than them, take them to the next level. Not like Marcus Garvey is one of our parents. He's one of our guides. He's one of the ancestors. He's one of the elders who we call an elder because we respect, not a Marcus Garvey. I'm glad to see Jomo Mtegete here. Is here. I still wear your T-shirt, and it's still in good shape. So I'm going to read. I know that everybody here can read, but I want to read these anyway and insert maybe a point or two in the process. I just got finished showing this slide presentation to the students that we had online on Thursday. And one of the things that kept popping out in the pictures were the crowds. I wanted to make sure that everybody, all of them, and everybody here could see the crowds. You can't see the number of UNIA, ACL organizations that existed around the world. Most of us don't know that the one in Panama was the largest on the planet. Garvey was masterful, and he spoke truth. We have to understand the time that he came up in too. This is the reason why Black folks flocked to him besides just his eloquence. They flocked to him because the conditions around them, it was evident. The oppression was evident. It was in our face. So it still wasn't an easy job for him. It was no mean feat for him to create this organization, and things drove him to the point where he felt compelled to do this. But you also had a people who were ready. This is a little different time. And this is a little different time in a number of ways because we have so many more lost souls and Negroes because we've moved so far away from the terror in our face. I forget the sister who was a poet who said, you know, before we knew who the enemy was, we knew to throw rocks or shoot the cops. Now we're not too sure who the enemy is anymore. And most of us are not clear at all. So I would be really surprised if a movement like this took off in this way, no matter how eloquent the speaker is, because the people aren't ready. They don't see the threat. They think that everything is fine. Or we get just, you know, a few bad apples and negotiate a little bit and everything will be fine. They don't understand how horrible it is and that it hasn't changed and why it was so necessary to destroy someone like Marcus Garvey. Not just physically destroy him, but to destroy his name so that most of us forgot his existence. Some people look around and they assume that the time is right because of the police shootings that have been going on forever, because of the brutality, because of COVID, because of whatever, and things are getting difficult. It's becoming obvious. So many Black businesses have closed. That doesn't mean that some haven't opened. But we know that when they catch a cold, it's not we catch a flu. When they catch a cold, we die. My concern primarily is with warriors who are expending so much energy trying to make people understand who are running to them for help, running to them for who before ran away from them, but now they're running to them to try to find out what to do and what's going on. And I think it's important that we deliver the word. I think it's important that we express our opinion relative to what needs to be done in a way that protects us. But we need to be very careful in terms of investing our hearts and our souls. I always talk about how in the 60s and the 70s, and I wasn't part of this, but I read many things about it since then, and I did some observing on my own, where you had all of these Black student union organizations coming together in the 60s and 70s because white folks were being white folks. And they physically were being attacked, and they verbally were being attacked in the classroom. So these black students closed ranks to protect themselves. What the most telling part for me in terms of what's going on now was that once white folks stopped saying, we don't like you anymore, stop throwing bottles out of the fraternity windows at black students walking by. Once that stopped, we ran back. The black student organization broke up, fell apart, because we were so sub-integrated into this reality. We wanted so much, still, even more, the love of Yurugu, that all we needed was a little opening in the door, a little opening crack in the window to run, to get back in. And we ran. So the folks who are running to us now, some of them are serious, some of them are sincere, some of them have known something is wrong, but they just couldn't figure out what it was. And they were afraid to reach out because of popular opinion and all the rest of that. So they just sort of watched and kept on going on with the status quo. So we need to be careful the degree to which we invest our hearts. We need to listen very carefully to their responses to what we say. If somebody wants to be a warrior, you should be able to give them a few bits and pieces of information and they go do the research themselves and come back to you with more sophisticated questions. They shouldn't be asking the same questions over and over and over and over again. I get so sick and tired of people saying, well, what's the plan? Well, how many people have laid out the plan? How many different ways have plans been laid out? Nobody needs to ask, what is the plan? What do we need to do now? You do what makes sense. You're righteously enraged and you need to act on that. I'm not going to tell you whether that's going to end you up in their prison or if it's going to end you up heavily defended someplace. I don't know. But I know that we don't have time to be sitting trying to figure out the safe way to get this done unless we want to see our great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren having these same dumb debates online. Something has to be done. Or this process of attrition, where slowly but surely you're chipping away at the edges of the front line until the front line no longer exists and people don't know and don't want to know that they're African. They don't understand the concept of enemy anymore. They think the enemy is truly friend. And there are no voices saying, what's wrong with you all? Folks need to do what they need to do now. Yes, conversation is important. Yes, talking is important because we need to find ways to communicate so we can get ideas, so organizations can operate the way that they need to operate, et cetera, et cetera. But the bulk of what we do, the bulk of our day should be spent in work. Hey, at least 90% of the day should be spent doing the work, whatever that may be. 90% of the day should be spent doing the work. Okay. Nana Marcus Garvey, he said, this man was so profound, he was so far ahead of his time. It's like Proverbs, when you read him, you have to sit your behind down and give serious thought to virtually every word and every sentence that he said. He said, let no voice, and he's talking about, to me, he's talking about the voice of our ancestors, the voice of our traditions, the voice of sovereignty through African eyes. Let no voice but your own speak to you from the depths, from the deepest thought. Let no influence but your own raise you in time of peace and in time of war. You're not supposed to, once it becomes, Yurugu is no longer shooting at you and it's quote unquote peacetime, you can start listening to their voice. At no point in time, ever, should we be listening to them for guidance. At no point in time, ever, should they be part of our conversations, or any Negroes or Negroettes should be allowed in our discussions. We're going to spend 2-3 weeks having a debate with somebody who does not want to be African over what we need to do now. I wish I was a cursing person because I would say F them. They don't have our best interests at heart. They don't have our children's best interests at heart. They don't have African people at heart. They have no concern or desire whatsoever for African sovereignty. And that's the only thing that Nana Garvey advocated, and he did that correctly. If he did nothing else right, and he did a lot of other things right, but if he did nothing else right, that focus, complete and total focus, singular focus on African sovereignty by any means necessary, he did that correct. He said, hear all, but attend only to that which concerns you. That can be taken in multiple ways. I'm concerned. I want to know what they're saying. Intelligent people know what their enemies are saying. Intelligent people have a CIA. They have an FBI. They have a spy network. They have languages that nobody else understands. They have secret societies. And their job primarily is to listen so that you can predict beforehand, not react, but act. So you can predict beforehand what your enemies are getting ready to do. But that doesn't mean that you sit around and be concerned with everything that everybody is saying. You have the intelligence to separate as the comedic folks said in the mystery system, you have the ability to separate the real from the unreal. You know how to see what impacts you. Now, Garvey said action. He didn't say reaction. He said action, self-reliance, the vision of self and the future have been the only means by which the oppressed have seen and realized the light of their own freedom. I just love to listen to his words. We can't depend on anybody else. I don't know what it's going to take for us to get that. I remember when I was young, my mother used to say, Black folks have to be pushed down so far that they have no choice in order to rise. But if we do that every time, then we're going to be starting from a lower and lower and lower and lower point. These folks aren't playing. Their goal is to remove us from existence. They have us convinced that nobody can do that, so we won't act on that. But they're in the process of removing us from existence. Right now, you just put people in a position where they just fight each other, where they're eating each other. You don't have to worry about them there just throwing some stuff every once in a while. That's us now. That's us now. And I love this, and I wouldn't change it for the world, but really there should be no need for this right here, this 3-day event, because everybody should be so busy doing their thing that we don't have to do this. That doesn't take anything away from the value of this. If we did this, if we were straight, if we were sovereign, this conference right here would be nothing but those folks who are doing the most serious of the work, coming together to have 3 days to sort of chill and just be in each other's company for 3 days before we go back to super intense work. That would be the purpose of this for me. You're so busy, you don't get to see the people who you love. You're so busy, you don't get to meet the people who you have heard so much about. But if you don't have the ability to control your situation, if you are not self-reliant, if you don't control your institutions, what did Bobby Wright said? Menticide cannot exist, it can't be enforced unless you control the institutions of the people. Unless you control control the institutions that control the people, because those institutions really aren't theirs. In so many ways, unless they are self-reliant. I don't even know if I want to call, say, our school system, because it's not teaching us what we need to be sovereign, to be solvent, to be self-reliant. And he prefaces that, the whole statement, with the word action. Most of what we do is react. It's like we forgot that we just got slapped. So we go into the same thing and then we're surprised that we get slapped again. It's like listening to some of the brothers online who want to talk about, yeah, well, the next time that happens, the next time no, that shouldn't be an issue. You should have solved the problem by now. That's like little boys and little girls, but mainly from my vantage point, being a male, little boys talking about what they're gonna do when he does that again, or when she does that again. They shouldn't have been allowed to do that again. We have to have a vision. We have to know where we're going. And again, following the tradition of Marcus Garvey and others before him, sovereignty has to be that goal. You can't, Yurugu cannot allow you to be African or anybody to be anything other than Yurugu on this planet. It's an invasive species. They cannot allow that. Why are we a problem? Why is every major Black organization that questioned Yurugu's sanity, why was every single one targeted? Show me one that stands that's moving against Yurugu in a sure-footed fashion, that isn't taking along with it some of the qualities that Yurugu wants us to have. The most radical ones I know of, they're embracing homosexuality. That's Yurugu. Okay. We're the ones that are only pursuing, that have been allowed to survive, because everyone, that's what the CIA and FBI have, whatever term you want to put it in, information gathering agency. Their job is to get information about the enemies of Yurugu so that they can stop it before it becomes a significant threat. And they've done their job well. They have credit where credit is due. You got to give credit where credit is due. And they've done their job well. Nana Garvey said, Nana Marcus Mosiah Garvey said, no race is free until it has a strong nation of its own. Sovereignty. Its own system of government and its own order of society. Are you going to claim independence or power? And we need to distinguish power from influence. How are you going to do that without being in the position to not lie? Because if it's not yours, then you had better not say anything of significance against those whose it is. Imagine this, I have a business and you come to work for me and you're running around the shop telling everybody that I'm a jerk. How long are you going to have your job? But if it's my business, then I can say what I want to say. I can be honest. I can be truthful. I can do the work that needs to be done. Whatever you're going to do other than that, within their space, at least in the public realm, and you better be careful in the private realm, is going to pursue their interests. Or you're not going to be able to pursue that. Not for long. Once they find out about it, I don't care whether you're working for Negroes or you're working for Yurugu. Negroes know to move you out as well because they're more afraid of losing their jobs. Never give up this idea. Let no one persuade you against it. It is the only protection of your generation and your race. Let me see, somebody should have bolded, italicized, underlined, made that in like size 3000 font. It is the only protection. Hold on to the idea of an independent government and nation so long as other men have them, and that will be as long as you have people. Never be satisfied to always live under the government of other people because you shall ever be at their mercy. They do with you what they want to do with you. They say to you what they want. They want to shoot your children in the street at random. Then they can do that. And what are you going to do? Hold a candle vigil? You're going to pray more? You're going to create community police organizations where we can talk about the level of brutality exercised against Black people? You're going to go to what, the governor or the political structure and negotiate with them about the conditions of Black men and women in prison? the rape of African people in prison, not only by us because we don't know who we are, but by them. We're going to negotiate our way. In order to negotiate your way into something, then you need to be negotiating from a position of power. And the only thing we're negotiating from is a position of influence. Influence means that you don't believe, and I know my definition is a little different than Amos Wilson's, but it means that you don't believe that you have the power to do what you need to do for yourself, and you must convince those people who have power to do what you want to do for you. That's influence. Power, I don't have to negotiate with anybody. You go to Wade Noble's definition on that. I don't have to negotiate with anybody. I do what needs to be done. I'm not going to negotiate with you for the education of my children. I'm not going to negotiate with you for the safety of my sons and daughters in the street. If that means that I'm dead tomorrow, then so be it. I didn't negotiate with you. And the example that I set will stand for those who understand that they are men, understand that they are women. You will ever be at that mercy, trying to make it appear that this is us doing it to us, that the conversation will change everything, that we're in pursuit of peace. Uruguay's not in pursuit of peace. Uruguay's in pursuit of domination, global domination. And if they have their will as masters of the universe, they want to dominate that. They want to dominate the creator. What did the last poet say? White man's got a God complex, God buyers. Marcus Garvey loved his blackness. That's one of the things that comes out in discussions of him in his youth. He loved the fact that he was dark skinned. He loved the fact that he came from a line of maroons. He loved that. He was not ashamed in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But he understood also how the world, how the Western world, how the world that, the reality that dominated his world, how it saw him. He said the world has made being black a crime. That's a study in and of itself. If you haven't read it yet, you need to read Tracy McIntyre's Criminalizing a Race. She talks about during the time of our enslavement. And I remember teaching a course where there's one, that was an article that I read that was in that course where the point was made that all black folks are seen as criminals. Those who aren't in prison just haven't been caught yet. That's the mentality we're dealing with. So if the police pull a black person over or take a black person in, they're not assumed innocent. Why would the cops pull a black person over or take a black person to the precinct unless the person was guilty? We don't trust ourselves. We can't get into depth or deep understanding of what Nana Amos Wilson said when he said crimogenic society. A society that inordinately produces an excessive number of criminals and criminal behavior. We're not the criminals. We're the imitators. And we're rank amateurs at it. We don't understand what they were like before this began. We don't understand the creator of colonies, penal colonies, because there were so many of them incarcerated. We don't understand the sending of criminals here. We don't understand that there were proportionately as many single female-headed families in traditional European society as there are in this country today. We think that this is something new. We think somehow between Europe and here, we became Americans. They are exactly what they've always been. This book, read Mama Rumba's Urugu. Understand what an asili is. That'll change your whole You get a mental recalibration reading that book. It'll be difficult, but you'll get a mental recalibration reading Mamarumba Jurugu. The world has made being black a crime, and I have felt it in common with men who suffer like me. And instead of making it a crime, I hope to make it a virtue. I say he did more than hope. I talk to diehard, serious UNIA members now. He did his work. It just affected only a fraction of us, though. It's not a crime for me. I'm still like when I was a child. When I hear about criminal behavior, I expect it to be them. And I know that it is. They just haven't gotten caught yet. Or maybe I should say, in this reality which they rule, they don't have to worry about being caught, because we'll defend them more than they will. How about our children? This should always be our primary focus. There's nothing more important for us here. That's why we're here. The universe is procreative. We are a microcosm of the universe. The universe is about the business of change through the process of procreation. That's what it does. I don't think I can explain it any more than that, but that's what it does. That's progress. And I don't know anywhere in the animal kingdom where the animals do not receive before birth the instinct to be able to live on their own without having to deal with a parent, like spiders, a few other creatures in general. We're supposed to be taking care of our children. We're supposed to be protecting our children, not using them as shields against Yurugu. So their minds have to be crystal clear. They need to know who they are, or they're going to grow up into punks like most of us. Afraid and rationalizing the fear like it's really courage. A punk knows when he's a punk, or she knows when she's a punk, however that would be said. We know, we just have to find ways to make it seem like this is what we need to be doing. But this is the only way to handle the situation. Slave is afraid of death. That's the most fundamental characteristic of a slave. Fear of death. Will do anything to keep from getting killed. Anything to keep from being murdered at the hands of the slave monster. We got to get up off of this and stop trying to live death or live dead. I've heard so many great minds say, like Nana Jaron Clark said, it takes one generation. All it would take is one generation. We're not courageous enough to create that one generation. Even within the quote unquote conscious community. And to some degree within the center community. People who are doing their best to be African and they're giving their children a choice. Whether they want to fight or not, whether they want to be African or not. If we're at war, then that choice does not exist. I don't know anywhere in history or our story where that was a choice that existed. Now that we're comfortable, it has become a choice. We're setting our children up for a suicidal genocide. And the sad part, for a lot of us, they're going to turn on us. Because no matter how we want to play it, they still see punks. Nana Marcus Mosiah Garvey said, tear from your walls all pictures that glorify other races. Tear up and burn every bit of propaganda that does not carry your idea of things. Treat them as trash. There is nothing in the Baruti's house that reflects Yurugu in any positive way. Absolutely nothing. In this space, nothing. And our daughter was brought up her entire life in a space or spaces where there was nothing in her view that positively reflected Yurugu. And there were major amounts of things, if you will, that reflected the positivity and the power of African people. So she couldn't grow up and walk out in this world and pretend like she didn't know who she was and didn't know who the enemy is. Now, how she responded to them or what have you might be a little bit different than us. She's an individual. Should I say a person? My Rama said we need to stop saying individual. We need to start saying person. Your children shouldn't be able to look anywhere in their world. I remember when Christmas came, I think it was the last time that we celebrated with a tree and all the rest of that good stuff. We were still in grad school. And Ajua received a package from one of our relatives. And she's so excited. She opened up her little package and pulled out that white doll. Got up and brought it right to me because she knew, not here. Not here. Of course, we got a black doll, you know, to replace that white doll. But she knew. Nobody said anything to her. She understood perfectly. And she knew everything was going to be all right. There should be nothing in your house that reflects goodness of Yurugu. Nothing. Your children should not be able to put that label on you. To me, that's like walking around smoking a cigarette and telling your children they shouldn't smoke. Nothing should reflect that. And all of your energy and effort should reflect an effort to move us towards sovereignty. They should be able to see that. When we say children do what they see, not what they hear, not what they're told. So they see you moving toward sovereignty with all of your might, to the best of your ability, with what you know at that time. Those are grounds for respect. So all of these white dolls, I tell you, it hurts me to my heart. Every time I see a black child holding the arm of a white doll, it hurts me to my heart. Every time I see that. And I would expect, this being the year 2020, right? Because we're so far away from our enslavement. We made it in society. I would expect by now. But I see more children still, maybe I need to go to different places, but I see more children still with white dolls than I see them with black dolls. That's a major, that's really a sad statement. Passing on menticide, instilling menticide, making our children menticidal. Seeing teachers being harsher and giving lower grades to students who write revolutionary papers, who think like we're at war. We're punishing our children for being African and rewarding them for being European. It's almost as if we realize that if we don't raise our children correctly, that Yurugu will punish us. Because there's got to be something over our head that makes us do this to our own children. There's got to be something over our heads that makes us do this to our children. There's got to be something. And we know what it is. Nana Marcus Mosiah Garvey said, we must encourage our own Black authors who have character. I'm sorry, not just our own Black authors, but Black authors who have character. Not contradiction like we glorify in Western society, where you can be home beating your wife every night and come out to speak on Saturday about the goodness of family. We must encourage our own Black authors who have character, who are loyal to their race. How much money are warriors paying for material that's written by enemies? I don't care how good it makes us look. That's what the public library is for. Because when you put your money in their hands, you're telling them, I support what you do. I support what you write. That was one of the most astonishing things for me in the 80s and the 90s, where some European would come out with something that said that we were crap, like the bell curve. And all these black scholars and students ran out and gave this man all of this money so that they could sit up and argue about this book that he had written. All that money went into his pocket, hundreds of thousands of dollars from black folks, because we're upset about what he wrote. That's what the public library is for. Give them our money. Arthur Schlesinger of the Disuniting of America sold thousands and thousands of copies among black students.
It's tall and nice, but the first bet was missing pieces and broken.
Who are loyal to their race, who feel proud to be black, and in every way let them know, let them feel that we appreciate their efforts to advance our race through healthy, and decent literature. Black writers shouldn't be starving artists. Black poets who fit this description shouldn't be starving artists. How come the wealthiest people who are writers, who are artists, who make our music are the ones who are the most disloyal, who have the sorriest of character, who want anything in this world but, as they say, but to be black, and who really don't care whether you appreciate them or not, because they know that you're going to buy from them because white folks say that you should buy from them, and white folks are putting them out there, and white folks will publish them. To me, that was always, at least from grad school on, that was always a red flag for me. If it's a white publishing company, I'm like, unless it's Marxist leftist, and then still, it's just the other side of the coin, because they're going to cover all bases to make sure that when they lose, some of them still win. We need to support those who speak for us. And I'm not talking about gamesmen. I'm not talking about those who are eloquents, because eloquence can be evil. I'm talking about those who actively speak and do for us. African-centered educational institutions have died because of the lack of support. Money that went to private white institutions, money that went to private Negro institutions, and those institutions who wanted the most for us, who had the best character, who were the most loyal to us, who were the proudest of being African. They died because the people who they were fighting for would not support them, turned against them, did things to destroy them. I'm not talking about clowns. We have clowns who are claiming to be African-centered. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about serious folks. I'm talking about serious folks. We give all our money in the world to people who have turned on us, who have no African sense. And we don't learn the lesson. We're still looking for this Messiah, educational Messiah, financial Messiah. We're still looking for somebody that's going to come and save us. Ain't nobody going to save us but us. Now, Marcus Mosiah Garvey said, the world does not count races and nations that have nothing. We need to have an economic discussion here. What percent of our income, is spent or spending power spent in black businesses? How many times the dollar circulates in the black community compared to the Asian, Hispanic, or white? How much of our stuff is spent on stuff that is consumed and has no value? Has no value relative to our empowerment. None whatsoever. How much we overspend trying to give them every penny that we have. how credit is getting ready to do a serious number on us because we think that that is the way, and we're teaching our children to work within a system that's going on. What Malcolm X's father said, credit is the first step back into slavery. He was correct. Yeah, most of us who are out here living large through our credit. If credit disappeared today, most of us would be impoverished. Most of us, not just some of us, most of us will be impoverished if credit came to an end today. And that's not money that really exists. And it's definitely not money that belongs to us. Credit is money that belongs to somebody else that you're using or they're allowing you to use. It's not yours. For most of us, if what we got on credit was demanded back, we'd have nothing. We wouldn't have a car, we wouldn't have a house, we wouldn't have clothes. Well, a lot of us wouldn't have food. So it's not money that we've earned. The debt continues to increase while we're making minimum amount due payments. Debtors' prisons are coming back. They're already in Mississippi. Debtors' prisons are coming back like they were in traditional European society. A whole series of prisons for people who could not pay their bills. Europeans never left Europe. They do the same thing here that they did there. And everybody's going to be reacting to that. It's amazing to me the number of people who always react when it's too late. Every once in a while online, I'll see one of somebody will point out, because I don't have them as friends. Somebody will point out where some former student of mine said, yeah, well, Professor Crawford, he was telling us about that at Morehouse, and we thought he was crazy. You know, now he knew what he was talking about. Well, it's too late now. You've already lived you're half your life. You already got all of your time and energy invested in this. You have attachments that keep you from doing this because you really used to have a good out this slave mentality. But now you want to recognize? That's not the kind of recognition I need. I need for folks to do their work and trust those people's words who love us. It says, for the neophyte, he must have faith in his ability, in the ability of the master to teach him the truth. The neophyte must have faith in the ability of the master, of his master, to teach him the truth. I don't want to be sitting in front of somebody, unless it's like a required course. I don't want to be sitting in front of somebody who's lying to me. Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Nana Marcus Mosiah Garvey said, the world does not count races and nations that have nothing. Point me to a weak nation, I will show you a people oppressed, abused, taken advantage of by others. That sounds awfully familiar to me. Oppressed, abused, and taken advantage of by others. We are taken advantage of in virtually every business in this country. Laundries, car dealerships. This Kroger down the street from us here has the self-checkout, and black folks are getting ripped off every day because they don't count their change. The machines are set. I don't know how many times Eni and I have caught the machines stealing from us, and the thousands and thousands of black folks that go through there. And these folks aren't sitting up there having conversations, cross-country conversations about how to steal from blacks. They know enemy. They know slave. And their culture has taught them to see us as enemy. Of course, that fits their Sealy automatically anyway, but still, culture, as has been said, is a defense mechanism. It protects your interests. You create it to do that. And Europeans logically have created a culture that protects their psychopathic, racist personality. Show me a weak race and I will show you a people reduced to serfdom, peonage, and slavery. Somebody might need to sit down and again, from an African-centered point of view, or should I say from the only point of view we should have, only perspective we should have. I hate that word perspective and point of view because that indicates that others are equally as valid, and that's not true for us. There's only one that's valid as far as I'm concerned. You need to have somebody who is a young scholar who is serious about that, because we need our scholars too, who will define slavery for us. Just that one topic, just that one subject, little short book. Nothing, it's not gonna require 100, 150 pages, just something short that explains slavery in such a way that people cannot help but see the condition that they're in. Show me a well-organized nation, and I will show you a people and a nation respected by the world. Of course, I don't care if the world respects me or not. I don't care if the world respects us or not. I'm more concerned at this point in time whether they fear us or not. But I still understand this point. We are either on the way to a higher racial existence or racial extermination. There's no gray area. It's like me, you're a Negro lost soul or you're a warrior. There's no blending. You're either there or you're here. You're either there or you're here. He made a very good, important point about the traders that we have, who exist at all levels, of course, but his point is very, very true. He said the trader of other races is generally confined to the mediocre or irresponsible individual. But unfortunately, the traders among the Negro race are generally to be found among the men higher placed in society. Higher placed by who? By their proven record of treason, by their connectedness to other treasonous Africans or Black folk, however you want to say it. The fellows who call themselves leaders. It's like the more treason you commit against African people, the higher you can rise, which says something about the reality that you're rising in. Wow, imagine that. The best people who look like you are those who work against you. The man who will compromise his rights, compromise rights of his race, can be classified with no other way than that of a traitor also. I misspelled that. Hope everybody knows that face that they're looking at. Because I ran into quite a few as I was in school. William Julius Wilson. There was a whole collection of them. And you don't get into that circle because that's a Negro circle. And they see you coming. That was Morehouse's mistake bringing Enion out there. They just didn't know because they thought that because we came out of the University of Chicago that we were good Negroes. It took them a while to see. It took a while for it to register. But as soon as it registered, then they immediately went about the business. Because they knew who was watching. They know who their masters are. And this one probably everybody knows. It's better to build strong boys than to repair broken men. I remember someone asking when we started Akabin, who do we prefer? Or they're asking me, who do I prefer to teach? The little ones or grown or almost grown men and women? I said the little ones. I don't have so much time left in my life. And I need those individuals who are receptive to considering the ideas that I present up in terms of what they're going to do with their life, than those I have to argue with. That one or two I have to argue with forever, which I'm not going to do. Now, Garvey loved our women. Obviously, he loved women with the name Amy. He married two of them. But he loved African women. He understood their strength. He understood their power. He understood their divinity. He understood their beauty. I think he did. He was crystal clear. And he did not mince words about that. Black women are the mothers of civilization and the queens of the universe. We need to be careful with how we interpret this, though, not in terms of what he said, but in terms of society in general, especially coming out of the mouths of many of us who want to be revolutionary, but don't understand African sovereignty and don't understand race first, who spent so much time trying to prove that we're all human. Whole nother discussion in terms of how our ancestors defined it, but in terms of us all being human and glorifying those individuals who spent their entire scholarly lives trying to prove that, to the point where white folks gave in, or appears to give in, because often people will lead you, like in what was that movie, The Great Blue Sea, or with the sharks, the mutated sharks, or what have you, where these sharks, the Deep Blue Sea, whatever, where these sharks they had been made more intelligent in this facility that was out in the ocean. They took the opportunity once an explosion occurred and things began to fall apart. They begin to move these people in a particular direction to get up to the top so they can get out. And these people were running, and they didn't realize until they reached the surface that these sharks, who seemed just to be chasing them, and they thought that they were running to good, safe places, these sharks were corralling them like cattle to open up the ways to get them to the top. So we went through the process of trying to defend ourselves by saying that we're all human. My brother, why are you treating me in this way? And they're leading this without us knowing it, in my mind. Because now that we're all human, that logic that we created in service to them, which I would argue they wanted anyway before, allows them to say, well, we're all human. You don't have any control or hold over Africa. It's as much ours as it is yours. We're all human. You just happen to have dark skin. Africa doesn't belong to you more than it belongs to anybody else. If Africa is the mother of the source of all humanity, then she belongs to us as much as she belongs to you. And we don't have an argument now. We did their work for them. We tripped ourselves up. Some of us were smart enough to recognize Cro-Magnon and other things, but we didn't get it. We didn't understand. We were so determined to get their love. And the only way we saw to do that was to convince them that they were wrong and that somehow some moral suasion would get them to love us. When their eyes weren't on us, their eyes were on Africa, which is evident now. Afrikaans, Chinese, everybody's moving in as we're running away, trying to figure out a way to do small business there as others take over. Amy Jock Garvey, my favorite quote by here: stand on your own two black feet and fight like hell for your place in the world. Stop punking out. Put your toe in the water. You got to cross the river, put your toe in the water and run back. The battlefield's a little thorny, so you quit. Live like an adult. Power is the only argument that satisfies man. It should be. Because without that, you're ruled by other men. I don't like Urugu telling me what to do, or my children what to do, or African people what to do. I really don't like that. And the only way I see out of that is to gain power. More power than he, she, it has. Garvey was big on learning. He was big on learning. And he knew that any excellence came from going above and beyond the call of duty. That anyone who surpassed whatever the limits were or whatever the norm was had to do more than anybody else. And this is one of my favorite quotes relative to that. The greatest men and women in the world burn the midnight lamp. Instead of reading 5 minutes a day, they're reading 20 minutes a day. If 5 minutes was the norm. We'll find the opposite happening in our community. People are reading less. Maybe all the intelligence is in the videos. I don't know. How much more do I have to go? Because I want a Q&A if we can. Oh, almost. I'll just go fast. He said, if you desire to accomplish greatness, which is still a continuation of that thought, if you desire to accomplish greatness, you must first decide in your own mind in what direction you deserve to seek that greatness. That means that we need to sit down and figure out in our own heads exactly what I want to do. Motivational speakers tell you all the time, affirmations tell you all the time, you have to say what it is that you want, as if you already have it. Then you give your mind that instruction, it'll move you in that direction. You must first decide in your own mind in what direction you desire to seek that greatness. And when you have so decided in your own mind, work unceasingly toward it. You don't stop, you don't quit until it's done. If we quit, then we're willing to admit that we're not genius, that we're less than what we say we are. In fact, we're what other people call us. I love it when people tell me what I can't do. The particular thing that you may want should be before you all the time. And whatsoever it takes to get it or make it possible should be undertaken. Use your faculties and persuasion to achieve all you set your mind on. Never stop. Never stop. Now, Marcus Mosiah Garvey said, you must pray for strong men and women to grow up among you to continue leading the race as our martyrs and heroes fall. Fall they must. That's the nature of being powerful in a reality that hates you and fears you. Fall they must, as they do appear, but there must be a continuous procession until the goal is reached. You must not mistake lip service and noise for bravery and service. And right now, it seems like for most of us, we are mistaking lip service for bravery and service. We want to be entertained. It's almost as if, since we're the ones who watch the most and get the most emotionally involved in the media, it's almost as if we want this because the tears will be so great. We need to laugh so that we don't have to cry. We need to laugh all the time so we don't have to cry because it's that bad. And maybe somewhere subconsciously back here, we recognize that. And we don't want to hear it. We don't want to see it. We want that entertainment distraction. We have been so deceived for too long. True courage, bravery, and real manhood cannot fail to show itself when embodied in the individual. It has not time and no place. It is ever evident. Man doesn't walk around telling everybody he's a man. Woman doesn't have to walk around telling everybody she's a woman. That's self-evident. So for me, if somebody walking around saying I'm a man, then I'm questioning whether they're a man. Just like if somebody's walking around talking about I'm an elder, I'm questioning whether they're really an elder. Because if they were, they wouldn't have to tell anybody. It would be evident. Self-evident. On that point, now what Marcus Mosiah Garvey said, so few of us can understand what it takes to make a man. I'm talking about personally make one. The man who will never say die, the man who will never give up, the man who will never depend upon others to do for him what he ought to do for himself, the man who will not blame God, who will not blame nature, who will not blame fate for his condition, but the man who will go out and make conditions to suit himself. Who's the author of that? Yeah. Who's the author of that book? We got copies for the students. Small book about how to being and Kimbrough did a book. Small book, very small book, thin book. We had the students read it. And there's a version for the girls. Think like a man. As a man thinketh. As a man thinketh. Yeah. Now, I don't recommend, I think that may be one of the 2 or 3 books I recommend by Urugu. I'm sure you can find it somewhere online where you don't have to buy it. But As a Man Thinketh and As a Woman Thinketh is full of our knowledge. Find the same logic in what we're taught, our ancestors taught each other in Kemet and before. This is simple. This is a synopsis. This so few of us can understand is a synopsis. It's just another statement about that. We so worried about consequences. You say we fear more what may happen. You know, men who are in earnest are not afraid of consequences. Really, I just have it up there because I like the picture. A strong man is strong everywhere. Those should be obvious. And this one, which one do I want to do? Well, I'll do both of them because this is important. This is along that same line. I really like this statement in terms of how we need to think in terms of winning. Life is an important function. Was given, what is going on with my speaking? It was given for the purpose of expression. The flower expresses itself through the beauty of its bloom. The vine expresses itself through the rambling search in settling its own nature, peculiar nature. The tree expresses itself in its smiling green leaves, shaking branches, and sometimes hanging fruit. The lark expresses itself in its laughter and song. The river expresses itself in its gentle meandering unto the ocean, and man expresses himself according to the idealistic visions of his nature. There is a scope for each life. Every individual, there's a scope for each life. Let yours find its scope and fully express itself. Man should have a purpose, and that purpose he should always keep in view with the hope of achieving it in the fullest satisfaction to himself. Be not aimless, drifting and floating with the tide that doesn't go your way. To find your purpose, you must search yourself, and with the knowledge of what is good and what is bad, select your course, steering towards the particular object of your dream and desire. Find that. Finding your course and steering your boat a lot in Kemetic writings. To find your purpose, you must search yourself. And with the knowledge of what is good and what is bad, select your course, steering towards the particular object of your dream or desire. Never enter upon life's journey without a program. Simpleton as you may be, you can have a program. No ship ever reaches port without a positive destination beforehand. Otherwise, it will drift on the mighty ocean to be overtaken by the storm or the ill wind that blows. The sensible captain goes to sea with a chart to map out his course so as to reach his harbor of safety. Your program is your chart through life. Everything you do, do it by method. Nothing succeeds continuously or repeatedly by chance. Nana Marcus Garvey said, after my enemies are satisfied, in life or death, I shall come back to you to serve even as I have served before. In life, I shall be the same. In death, I shall be a terror to the foes of Negro liberty. If death has power, then count me in death to be the real Marcus Garvey I would like to be. I may come in an earthquake or a cyclone or plague or pestilence, or as God would have me. Then be assured that I shall never desert you and make your enemies triumph over you. Would I not go to hell 1,000,000 times for you? Would I not lose the whole world and eternity for you? Would I not cry forever before the footstool of the Lord omnipotent for you? Would I not die 1,000,000 deaths for you? Then why be sad? Cheer up and be assured that if it takes 1,000,000 years, the sins of our enemies shall visit the 1,000,000th generation of those that hinder and oppress us. For those who didn't know, we are the whirlwind. Warriors are karma. We have work to do. He directed it and others directed it. Oh, we need to stop calling his name. That's disrespectful to pretend that you honor somebody, but you're not doing the work that they called us to do. That's disrespectful. In the place of liars and punks. Okay. So it's 12 after, 13 after. Leaves me about what, 17 minutes for Q&A. Are there any thoughts? Are there any questions? Are there any, oh, I see a lot in the chat. So maybe I need to go back and read some of this. Okay. Oh, folks are having a good conversation here. I like this. Well, I mean, there are no there are no questions there. There's just serious statements. Are there any questions, any thoughts?
Bob, I got a question.
Okay, I'm listening.
Thank you for your time and your energy. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
I've been just having this conversation with the brother who was claiming that Clarence Thomas was raised as a nationalist, and that just made me think of some other conversations. So my question is, what do you think about this idea that kids come up with parents who teach them African nationalist ideology, and then they end up being like hard assimilationists? Do you think there's a reason why that happened, or how you feel about that?
I think that, well, what we have seen, and one of the things that disturbs us, and it's not all of our children, but I see children who I think are of weak character from the get, who are brought up in what it means to be African, and they know all of the quotes and the proverbs and the names, and they've read all the important books, but it was never something that they wanted because they didn't want the discipline. They didn't want the responsibility. They saw what everybody else was doing as the glitter. They saw it as where they wanted to be. So they were raised in it. They were raised in it, but it wasn't them. And the sad part about it is you can't tell them to the person who leaves home usually.
Mm-hmm.
And they run as hard and fast as they can away from that. But to me, it says a lot about their character. In the first place, it says a lot to me about a weak character, where you don't want that kind of discipline in your life. You don't want to have to fight. You want the ease that's supposed to come with life in the West. And being a good character as an African requires some work. It requires some sacrificing. So to me, for those individuals, it really speaks to character. I know quite a few such individuals. And it speaks to the quality of the character. It speaks to the weakness of that person, that they didn't want to embrace any kind of struggle, and they use what they learned as a tool to gain more. So if what they learned, and of course, children are smart enough to know that if their parents are talking this African stuff, that the vast majority of society, just based upon their relatives, but the vast majority of society is against it and thinks that they're crazy. Right. And what child doesn't grow up in Western society who doesn't want to be not the opposite of their parents, but doesn't after they see their parent as not an oppressor, but but how they take that, what they do with that, to me depends on the character. And I see the ones that I've seen in the quote unquote conscious community, they're very weak individuals. And I can't blame most of them because many of them is a result of them being spoiled. Right. So they come into this world looking for the easiest route to the greatest riches. I want to be rich and famous. Our mistake is that we assume that because they have the information and that they were steeped in that information more thoroughly than other folks, that they will carry that forward. I mean, I look at a number of the children of people who we respect, and I'm wondering whose house they were brought up in. Yeah. You shouldn't be the child of a revolutionary sleeping with the enemy.
Well, you.
And
I'm
part of
Baruti. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's somebody.
This is Yasanto Wanzinga. I didn't know you weren't finished yet.
That's all right. Greetings. How you doing? I can't see you, but I recognize your voice.
I know.
Yes.
You know, and my question, I had my hand up, and you just made reference to my question. Can you please speak to the rush to get our men and our women into interracial relationships? It's on billboards, it's in commercials. They're even showing our babies. If they show a little Black girl, they're showing her with a little white boy. And there are many of us who have bought into that. And you just said something that I've always been concerned with. I have seen more young boys or young men and women enter into interracial relationships that are coming from what is supposedly be an African-centered education. Now, I mean, here I am preaching, but I'm not. I often say to their parents when they say they can't do anything about it, I said, but you will attend the wedding. Mm-hmm. You don't attend the wedding of your child if that child is marrying outside of the race. So would you just speak to what's going on now in society? And it's on billboards, and it disgusts me. I mean, it's just an issue that I do think can become a problem.
Well,
or is a problem.
Oh, it's a major problem.
It's a problem.
And to me personally, it has a lot to do with child rearing. I don't want to hear all this, we're all human and equal. Yes, excuses, but I appreciate that. Our daughter understood that if she got together with some white guy, she may be able to come home, but he can't come into the house. That was crystal clear. And she understands that today at 35, however old she is. I don't care if I'm 100 and she's 70 something or 80 something, whatever. Not in my house. So those stands need to be set. Like you said, you don't go to the wedding. You don't support that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I would usually, and you're way beyond this, but usually when someone asks a question like that or something similar, if I'll send them to excuses, but I'll also send them to Andrew Hacker's Two Nations.
What was the other? Because I just purchased a bunch of excuses to give to those individuals. Right. But what was the other book? I'm sorry.
Andrew Hacker's Two Nations.
Oh, okay.
Andrew Hacker's Two Nations. This is a liberal white guy. He wrote it in the 80s, I believe. And Andrew Hacker, from their perspective, he explained that they're afraid. Of course, we knew that, but it was the way that he said it, speaking for them, because nobody knows them better than them. And he explained the behavior and movements of them in the direction of trying to befriend Blacks because they know it's over. They know it's over. They know that there be everything that they have done, and we don't have to read it. We can imagine what they have done and what they are and what they're about. They recognize their inferiority. They understand that, and they're trying to compensate for that. Everything from using, I mean, that's like hours worth of discussion in terms of what they're doing to try to absorb us into them. Even redefining what white is through the blending process where they become stronger as a result of being blended with something that's stronger than them. But it's also, I mean, there are so many angles that we can look. We can look at this in terms of Chancellor Williams. We can look at this in terms of him. John Clark really talked about it a lot, that buffer zone that they need to create. Whenever they feel threatened, just like with the regentrification in the cities now, they're turning these cities into forts. They don't want that neighborhood. They want to turn these into forts because they realize that people are understanding what they are. These are forts that they are creating. Look at the way they're being structured. Look at the level of security in them. I'm in West End in Atlanta, and I can see clearly. I've read about it. You've seen it in Chicago. I'm from DC. I know exactly what's going on. They're creating forts. That's what they did back in the old days of the West. Whenever they were threatened by the Indians, they circled their wagons. That's the same thing they're doing with this regentrification. But that fear of genetic annihilation, to use French Chris Wilson, that fear causes them to react, to behave in certain ways. And one of the things that they do is to create a, I lost the word, not barrier. What's the word I use? Yeah, I'm losing my mind here.
Perimeter?
The circle, the ring that Europeans will make of rape, mixed race people, buffer zones. They're trying to create a buffer zone. They've done this historically. Everywhere they went, they raped the women and created this this caste of mulattoes who served them and kept the black folks at bay. They put them in the positions of leadership over the black folks, and this kept the black folks from attacking them. I remember the riots when Martin was killed and Malcolm was killed in DC. And what they did, they let black folks tear up black folks' stuff, but they put a ring around that to keep them from getting, and they could tear up the white Jewish stuff. But they kept a ring of police to keep them from getting to where the white folks were. It's the same thing that they're doing biologically. They understand that they're in bad shape, so they need this buffer zone, and it's going to reach a certain percent, and they're going to stop. Just like, what is it? 5%, it's either 5% or 7%. Doesn't make a difference what the class status of the community is. When black folks reach a critical mass, that's 5 to 7% in the white community, then you have white flight. Douglas Massey talked about that in American Apartheid. So the pattern is similar, whether you're talking about housing, whether you're talking about police, whatever you're talking about, geographical space. I call it a buffer zone, where they have to develop because they know they're unnumbered. They know that they are weaker. They know that they would lose hands down. What did Malcolm say? All you got to do is give me a knife in the night. So they understand that. So they create defensive systems. And one of the defensive systems is, and all of these people, who are the leaders, who are the voices who are heard in sports, in entertainment, in government, everywhere. This collection of individuals who have been selected, whether somebody sat there and read in a book or whatever, it's a cultural thing, where these individuals are put into positions, are elevated to positions of power where they make decisions for us, and because they are, who is it that said that? I believe it was Michael Jordan, who I have no political respect for whatsoever. But I believe it was him who made the point that, oh, I'm not the best basketball player out here. He said, there are many who are better than me. I just happen to, go here and do this and do that at that time and express the correct kind of behavior and attitude or what have you. I can't remember, I don't think it was LeBron, but it was on 60 Minutes where this professional basketball player, he took this 1 square block area and he rebuilt it. He had it rebuilt. and had basketball courts, outdoor basketball courts, the best surfaces, the best everything in here. And he donated it to the community. And he was on 60 Minutes, and it was the white guy way back then. He was interviewing him, and he said, "Man, that's really a humanitarian thing that you did. You know, your own people, blah 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 blah." He said, "Oh, I did that for selfish reasons." He said, "Because the best players are on the street. That's where I go in off season. That's where I practice and learn new stuff in off season." So there is a selection process. The first black male to be allowed in Major Baseball wasn't the best. He was the one who they deemed would be most conducive to being spit on and being called the N-word. Rosa Parks was not the first. She was made the image because the first black woman to do it would have made a bad image because she was pregnant and she wasn't married. This is not accidental. And nobody's sitting there saying him, 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 him. The culture knows. Just like people talk about conspiracy theory, it don't make a difference. And we spend forever talking about these names, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't make a difference who's there. They know. So if any one of those Rockefellers, Bilderbergs, whoever, died tomorrow, they be replaced before they hit the grave. Because it's a cultural conspiracy. It's not an individual conspiracy. These folks are building a buffer zone of interracialists, of mulattoes, of homos, who will serve as their protection. And those individuals know that if they don't serve as their protection, that they're not going to be in those positions anymore. They know their roles. Nobody's got to say anything. Nobody got to say anything to the black folks that have in a meeting when the white person walks in and everything changes. Nobody, they didn't sit there and say, all right, everybody be quiet. Nobody said anything to anybody. This is a cultural phenomenon. You really want to understand how this mess works? You set up a culture in your own image, and that everything that's done within that image protects and pursues your interest. Everything. The education system, family structure, everything pursues your interest. And those individuals who your culture deems enemies are going to be destroyed in one way or the other. Every negative thing in this society has hit us more than anybody else. Children be turned against us. I know I'm out of time.
Yeah,
I had a question.
I hate to be the most hated black man on but I want you to be able to close out before it cuts off on you.
Okay. Well, I'd like to say I love the fact that you all are here. This is a great sacrifice, period. You all don't become here. There's somebody somewhere who knows everybody who's on here by picture or face or location. So this is not a good place to hide. So I applaud each and every one of you for being here. I applaud Brother Alias, Brother Bomani for their work, for their courage, for their dedication, for the energy that they have put into this. This is a work. This is a event for African people forever. This will never be forgotten. I appreciate you all support. I appreciate being asked. I appreciate Enia being asked to come on, because people need to hear what she has to say too, because she's my compliment. She's serious. And I'll say, finally, take something from here and apply it. Don't spend any time talking about what I said unless that statement is in some way, shape, form, or fashion going to be applied or added to the work that you're doing already. I'm proud of everybody here. These are some serious workers. These are some serious workers. And most serious workers have such humility that they don't even recognize how bad they are. Of course, we want you to support us because we do what we're supposed to do. I don't lie to our children. Any of y'all doesn't lie to our children. We love our ancestors. Marcus Garvey, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Nana Marcus Mosiah Garvey is an important man for us. Amy Jack Garvey is an important woman for us. So please support us. Help us to do this work. Buy the books, buy the DVDs, come to the lectures. I say give you all the website, which is www.akobenhouse, AKOBENH. This is the Keisha. Made me mess up the whole website. www.akoben, AKOBEN, house, HOUSE.com. Message me on Facebook, message any on Facebook. If you lose that address, I know Brother Alias and Brother Bomani have it. So support us. Homo, Asafo, yes. A BB for Hodier family.
Hey, unmute.
BB for Hodier, Bubba.
A BB for Hodier. A BB for Hodier.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, go to the closing ceremony. Go to the closing ceremony. Everybody go to the closing ceremony.
All right, ceremony.
Doc Maki. Buck front, yeah. Shot. Intro to O. And my dude, that Timbuktu to Ave. Renew your passion, shun the condition. And not the who, what, when, where, and you are from. At last. Put the higher